Let's get it underway and kick it off. Welcome, everyone. Officially, we've been very excited to put this tasting on. The Ben Nevis from the barrel has been such a long time coming, I feel. It's, been talked in dribs and drabs behind the scenes after previous tastings with Angus, and now it's finally here in our hands in small bottle format or big bottle format if you've picked one up already. And it's here without a lawsuit for the label and without spelling errors, which I will
Mm.
totally let Chris take the blame for that one since he's our resident spelling tragic. We'll just say it was Chris.
Are there
Um,
spelling errors on it?
no. It's
Okay,
all fixed
phew.
up now, but I just remember saying it and being like, oh no.
Good.
But yeah, so obviously, in addition to the Ben Nevis, we have an insane collection of new Decadent Drinks whiskies to taste through tonight. And we're honored, as always, to be joined by Angus for the tastings. So let's not delay. I'll quickly go through the housekeeping so we can crack in. Obviously, our virtual tasting housekeeping video is always in the Zoom link email for you guys. Includes the pointers of 6 glasses if you have them. I know some of you guys posted showing your setup already. Love the 6 glasses. I am lazy and only have one. Obviously, the most important pointer from the video is please don't drink and drive. We encourage responsible drinking. That's always up on our YouTube channel, along with recordings of all of our virtual tastings, including this one. We love to see tasting notes and questions in the chat. Please pop them in. And I'm going to go through the tasting order quickly verbally for people at home. So number 1 is the 1972 Vatted grain 52-year-old. Number 2 is the 2014 Glen Moray 10-year-old. 3 is the 2013 Ben Nevis from the barrel 11-year-old. Whiskey number 4 is the 2003 Westport 21. Number 5 is the 2005 Craigellachie 20-year-old. And then whiskey number 6 is the World Peat 8-year-old blended malt, which, looking at the labels, I'm actually really excited to get into that one. And in classic me fashion, I have lined up the oldest dram to start our night with. So let's crack into this impressively old vatted grain while Angus chats us through who he had to blackmail to get a release like this.
No blackmail. I'm willing to do despicable, filthy things to procure tasty whiskey.
We appreciate your sacrifice.
Yeah, I don't really like grain whiskey. I should say at the outset of this, I'm not always the biggest fan. However, I'll caveat that by saying I do like old grain whiskey, and this is a nice old grain whiskey. I don't know what grains went into it, but I do know it was a mix of grains made as new make in 1972. They were vatted, filled into these refill barrels at the time, and just left. And that then became a parcel which sat on someone's books for back in the days when everything was done with paper for years. So by the time it got transferred into sort of digital systems in the early 2000s, it had just been already several decades old. And at that point, the information about what was in it originally was lost, and all that was on what's called the DO, the delivery order, and put into the digital archive, digital spreadsheet system record keeping, was vatted grain. So that's all we know. And grain whiskey, being what it is, rectified up the wazoo, up to above 90% ABV in some instances. I'm afraid I am not organoleptically skilled enough to detect by nosing this. Oh, there's a 42% North British and 3% Canvas, and so yeah, we do know it's distilled from all grains distilled from 1972. We know it's sat in the same refill barrel, single barrel since filling, and all the other information available on the label there. Natural cask strength, 52 years old. Actually, this was bottled, I think, only a week before it turned 53. So, and the thing I like about old grain is that by this point, by this age, after decades, it's really started to reveal fruit character. And also, I think what's very fun with this one in particular is blind. You could almost say it's a Demerara rum, a very old Demerara rum, because I think lighter spirits as they age, and conversely, lighter spirits more than heavy spirits can age really well. I think, I don't think you would get an Ardbeg that would stand up too well after 52 years, for example. They all tend to show much better at younger ages, whereas grains and things like Speyside malts, lighter distillates, they tend to withstand aging a lot longer, especially in refill wood like this. And they tend to converge with other spirits. So this is where I find real synergy with rum when I nose this. And also like that quite exotic fruitiness, there's quite a lot of pineapple, baked banana, and getting into slightly exotic territories. I find things like papaya and dried mango in this. And I just think it becomes a very elegant, very classy, very pleasurable old spirit. So it's old, but it's also approachable. It's easy. It's quite deft and elegant. That lightness stays with it even after 52 years in cask. And again, this is another good example of where refill wood starts to come into its own and has such power to bring quality in spirits, because after decades, the cask has given richness and has rounded it out, matured it well, but it's still leaving a lot of breathing space for the qualities of the spirit, the sort of inherent fruit characteristics. It hasn't dominated it or crushed it with oak. It's not overly tannic. It's not overly bitter or too spicy. So it's in line with my personal preferences for whiskies, which is why I picked it. And I think it's just a lovely old grain. And it's not, it's really the one way to be able to access very old spirits is French spirits or grain whiskies. So again, I think it's a pretty good price for what it is for this sort of age. And yeah, hope you enjoy it. It makes a very good cocktail as well. It makes a very fun 50-50 with Drambuie. Make a rusty nail with old grain whiskey. That's a nice alternative, and makes a very good dark and stormy because of the rummy vibes.
I wonder if thought about like a rum style cocktail,
yeah, or a decadent and stormy, because you have to be a little bit flash to mix one of those up with a 300-pound bottle of grain whiskey.
100%. It's when you said rusty now, I do only 15 mils of Drambuie because I don't like it too sweet, weirdly, even though I'm a massive sweet tooth. But yeah, this would be incredible. It's so like candy, like rock candy. And yeah, definitely getting the tropical notes. I think Glen was getting grilled pineapple, definitely. It's going to be drinking something close to an age statement whiskey for himself. Yeah. I think a couple people in the chat were saying this is probably the oldest whiskey they've ever had age-wise. I'm seeing a lot of nods as well. Yeah, I think even for me, this is the oldest one I've had age-wise. And you're totally right. Like the older I get, the more panicked I become, realizing that I am going to have to start picking up bottles of Armagnac from my birthday because I won't be able to afford the whiskey soon. So yeah, it's definitely wild.
Yeah, it gets harder and harder every year to. Yeah, there's a possibility we might be about to buy some casks of 1985 malt whiskey, but I don't know. Don't know if it's going to happen. I'm waiting on samples, so we'll see. Yeah, it gets harder.
Yeah.
Even in Armagnac and cognac now, it's tricky. Do I have anything from 1970? No. I could get some. Cognac, which wouldn't be vintage stated, it would be V.70. So if you're willing to commit to an order of 200 bottles, then I can probably do that for you. We do private bottlings if you're interested. So, is this available to buy?
I believe so. We'll have I think I'll share the link now. All of the well, you guys can suss it out for yourselves whether the bottles are in there. I think we still have some, but I'm not 100% certain. Obviously, rewards members get 20% off all the IBs that we bring in. But yeah, there's a collection in there. Have a hunt, but yeah, probably honestly. So obviously, grain being really affordable, but this is probably one of the nicest grain whiskies I've ever had, like hands down.
We're definitely sold out from our side, so yeah, grab it if you can.
just heard from our inventory top boss minion that it looks like we might be sold out. But yeah. But we do have a latest shipment inbound. Yeah, Glen drinks like a 40 or 40% ABV. It's not the years, it's the mileage. Thanks, Patrick, for the Indiana Jones quotes. Scott's enjoying it. Yeah, I feel like it's not a thinking whiskey necessarily. It's just an enjoyment whiskey. Despite the age, it just tastes so easygoing.
Yeah, it's. I think this is always. I've made this point before, but I think it's always a sign of a really good whiskey when the cask strength doesn't sort of show itself up front when you're nosing and tasting. Like a really good whiskey kind of digests and suppresses its own alcohol a little bit, and I think that's definitely the case here. Especially all that aging has just made it very mellow, very approachable, very easy. Shall we
move on to the one of the younger whiskies on the tasting, the Glen Moray?
Yeah, this is a screeching handbrake turn. This is Glen Moray, and it is a 10-year-old Glen Moray, and just can't remember off the top of my head what the vintage is. I'm just checking. So
2014.
2014, yeah, sorry, 2014, 10-year-old, and despite the dark colour, this was matured in a second fill sherry hoggy. So I really love this. I think this is one of the great unsung whiskies of Speyside. I don't know if it's unsung. A lot of people like Glen Moray these days, but I've always loved Glen Moray, and this to me is something I've been looking for a while, which was a good young sherried, like richly sherry Glen Moray. I always love a good second fill sherry hoggy that still has quite a lot to give in terms of activity and richness like this, but is not too overbearing. So I would say it's a sherry bomb, but it's not not like a thermonuclear sherry bomb. It's got a bit of elegance. It's got a bit of sophistication. It's definitely got strong maturity for 10 years old. And again, this was one where the ABV was quite punchy on this. It was above 60%. So when often in that case, to me, I see the obvious solution and opportunity is to just reduce by a few degrees and bring out a bit more fruit and freshness. And that's precisely what we did here. So we brought it down to 57.1. So a strength which is equivalent to the old 100 proof, a quite classical high proof bottling strength, and it has a lot of power. So it retains a lot of the power of cask strength, but delivers like real freshness and real richness, and opens up the fruity depths of the whiskey a bit more. So lots of dark fruits, lots of spices, and lots of kind of, I would say, classical earthy tobacco, dark chocolate, a bit of sea salt notes. Anyway, I'm pretty delighted with it, and yeah, what are people saying about it?
Yeah, I think everyone was admiring the first whiskey so much. I'm getting a lot of like red rippers, and it is very much that red fruit. Patrick, is anyone else getting a hint of smoke? You're my rice crackers throwing me off. Yeah, I'm getting that, but it's kind of it's like a rancio tannin kind of thing, rather than I don't know. Maybe I know that Glen Moray does do peated, but very, very infrequently.
It's so I have no idea what the previous cask held. So there's every possibility that it could have been something with a bit of smoke, and that smoke has transferred into the Glen Moray and become kind of assimilated into the Glen Moray's DNA over time. But that's pure speculation. So just an update for anyone that missed it at the start. We are trying to move house, hence why my shelves look very sparse. I have tried to get ahead of myself with packing up bottles. And before anyone asks, no, I have not sold my whiskey sponge collection. Not let my babies go that easily.
Yeah, I feel like as well when you're a whiskey lover and you move house, it's like What's the most important thing in my house? The whiskey. Patrick's nodding. He exactly knows. Wow.
Um, yeah, I don't trust removal dudes to move my bottles, or in fact my glasses, or the covert casks that may or may not be in my garage. So I've got a lot of heavy lifting to do myself in the next few months, probably. Yeah. So how are people enjoying the Glen Murray? It's quite
I
a
think
it's quite
it's
a big
great.
beastie drum.
Yeah, it's beastie, but it doesn't feel too much, if that makes sense. It's like it's still super sippable. Um, but yeah, you're right. I think I was talking to another indie bottler recently as well about just how versatile Glen Murray is and just how like rounded they are. It's not hard to find a good one. They're, coming out the wazoo, like, and just creating a lot of good whiskey, and just flying under the radar because their price and their brand reputation. So,
Yeah,
no good reason.
Glen Murray's very funny because it really suffered for so long from the fact that, at least in this country anyway, that it was in all the supermarkets for super cheap, and it was always this non-age stated Chardonnay finish, 40% of just atrocious, like really bad whiskey. But all of us that were a bit more geeky, like, knew it from independent bottlings and older Glen Murray bottlings, and knew that it was like potentially a really classy malt. And another one of those space outers that ages really, really well is some stunning older, like 60s bottlings, 70s bottlings of Glen Murray. So
Yeah,
yeah,
100%. Yeah, I think it was Martin Diekman maybe we were chatting to from Malt Barn, and he was just like, it's very cheap here, so people don't think well of it. I was like, it's cheap everywhere, apparently. So yeah, no, it's super, super
um,
good.
cool. Should
Well,
we chat
move
about the
on
Ben Nevis?
to the star of the show. Yes, I was thinking that.
So Ben Nevis from the barrel. Um, so this is a whiskey that you guys, many of you, will have had before. This is essentially originally a refill butt of 2013 Ben Nevis, which was very, we say, peely wally in Scotland, pale and pure and distillate driven. And we bought this butt very full and very high strength, like 66% alcohol. So we chopped it up into, I thought, just to sort of give it a little bit of a, a, a touch more richness without overkill. I put it into 4 refill quarter casks. I met just American oak refill quarter casks, and we did 2 of these as a Ben Nevis bottling for Whiskey Sponge. No, I can't remember which edition. I think Whiskey Sponge edition 88 or
Um,
89. No, it wasn't 88 because it was
85?
89, 85. Yeah, that sounds about right.
Yeah.
So this was just a 10-year-old Whiskey Sponge, and that proved popular. And then I think because we did that, Whiskey List asked about more of that particular liquid, and we had. So I did one of the other quarter casks as an exclusive for Australia for one of the bars. I think we did it for, and then we
Sick.
had this other quarter which Whiskey List also wanted, and then it started to leak. I said, well, we're going to have to do something with this to arrest the leaking. So we had just bottled a really nice Deanston from a first fill barrel, and that cask was sitting fresh and freshly disgorged. So I said, right, let's just put it into this. It's still American oak. It's an ex-Deanston first fill barrel. It's going to be pretty unintrusive to the Ben Nevis distillery character. So put it into that. So by this point, there wasn't a lot of the liquid. It just sat in the barrel with quite a good amount of headspace and just continued for almost a year, I think. So it's been on quite the journey, this bottling, and then finally it's now here, bottled for Australia for you guys. Now 11 years old, and what strength did we bottle this one at? I can't remember. Is it done at 50?
53.3.
53.3, yeah. So that was reduced by several degrees down. And from what I recall of tasting this at the time, so I did have a little sample from the end of the run, but I haven't tasted it for a while now. But it was, I think, it's been on a very fortuitous little journey, because it's very different from the original Ben Nevis that we got in that 2013 butt when we purchased it. It's become a lot more sort of rounded, rich, waxy. Just the process of being in slightly more active wood with a good amount of headspace and air has provided a really nice amount of concentration. And there's still loads of Ben Nevis distillery character preserved in there. It's still quite a mechanical, oily, heavy dram. You still get a lot of that kind of rough and ready, powerful West Highland distillate character. Like Ben Nevis is a proper classical Highland malt whiskey, and that absolutely comes through in this. And I think that just little extra sort of year and a half of tinkering has rounded it off really nicely. So to me, this is exactly what independent bottling is all about: is looking for opportunities to be creative. And lots of independent bottlers do finishing, re-racking, and we do too. But when we do it, this is exactly what I like to do, which is do it in a way which it preserves the integrity of the distillate and just elevates it and brings it to a point where it shows at a really high quality level in the bottle, and you don't see the joins. You don't see the kind of woody clunkiness that you can get from a sloppy re-rack or a short flash finish or something that's been rushed. So, and also something where you use a lot more active wood. Like we could have used much more active wood to try and undertake the same thing in a shorter space of time, but I just have no interest in that approach. I'm much more interested in just very subtle course corrections. I think that makes for more interesting products. And being a distillate nerd, then it's much more in line with my own personal preferences in whiskey. So yeah, I hope you all enjoy this. I think it's a pretty cool bottling, and I'm very pleased that it went out to get appreciated in Australia.
Yeah, I think we'll see if this works. I managed to. So it was the
That
85.
was the original, yeah.
Yep, and then this was the bottling for Elysian. So the kind of progression from one to the other, and then finally on the Ben Nevis from the barrel. Shout out to Tristan at Horny Pony for the great photos. But yeah, it's having tasted them all, it's very much that they're all genetically related cousins. They each have that kind of twang to them, but they are very. This one has so much more fruit on it than either of the previous two, and that waxiness and whatnot. Ollie probably wants to talk about the label, I assume.
No, I'll keep it short and sweet. I might share a picture at the end of our original inspiration that Angus told me no, that we couldn't use. I don't know if you remember Angus, the original.
Oh yeah, yes. Yeah, I've got vague recollections of there being a bit of to and froing to get it right.
Yeah. But more importantly, Angus always writes a beautiful little spiel at the back. I won't read it all, but the very last line I have to shout out because it says, "We hope you enjoy this goon bag full of griefy Ben Nevis goodness." I love that.
Well, ever since you told me about goon bags, I can't stop using it.
Have you heard of Wheel of Fortune here? Or goon bag?
Oh yeah, Wheel of Fortune, Angus.
I have heard of it, but I've never watched it.
So there's a variation on the TV show. Is it Goon of Fortune that it is, Holly?
Yeah, so you got your Hills hoist washing line, and you put your goon bags on each corner and you spin it, and if it stops, then you have to take a sip from your goon bag, the drinking game.
We're a serious country.
Well, yeah, I mean, I fully approve of any nonsense like that. So yeah, sounds something like something the Sponge would have definitely deployed. So yeah, people seem to enjoy the Ben Nevis.
Yeah, I think Scott, it's a nice Nevis. They're Arkansas cousins, yeah, for sure. A little bit more genetic similarity than you would want, I guess. Um, but no, it is, yeah, it's so lovely. I feel like this is another whiskey where it's just like just overwhelmingly enjoyable. And it's like I don't have to think about it. My brain can just really flat out enjoy it. Um, but yeah, that fruity wackiness from that Dean's cast just makes it sing. I think I still have some of the samples of the other two, so I might do like a little parallel between them, but I have a sneaking suspicion this is my favorite. So
Um, shall we chat about the Westport?
I think we shall. I
Yeah.
think I will say as well, you are probably one of the only IB brands and bottlers who fairly consistently does a Westport. I feel like nobody else really gets their hands on them that often.
Uh, I think there was a sizable parcel which went around, and there's not much of it left. And there's a supplier that has a bit that we've dipped into a couple of times, a few times now actually over the last 2 3 years. And yeah, the reason I looked at it is, I mean, it's good liquid first and foremost, of course, and the fact that it's almost 99.9% Glenmorangie um, is is quite appealing, and also yes, the fact that there's not many other people doing Westport anymore um, is a good motivator. So yeah, this was the second cask of Westport we did in the last year. We did, and they were both from these are two from the same parcel. These are 2003 Westports. Um, I have from the very lips of Bill Lumsden himself confirmation that it is essentially 99.9% Glenmorangie with a nano droplet of Glenmurray in there. So it is technically a blended malt, but it's essentially Glenmorangie. Yeah, so this is a 2003, 21 years old, and matured in refill sherry initially, and then finished for about 2.7 years in first fill sherry wood. So first fill sherry hoggy, which has been quite active and delivered in this case quite an old school sherry profile. It's quite jammy and quite figgy and pretty earthy and heavy on the tobacco. I think it's just, to me, what I like about this, what appeals to me most is that I feel like I'm just drinking an old school sherry Glenmorangie. It reminds me a lot of, I don't know if you ever encountered this bottling, but Glenmorangie 18-year-old, when it was first brought out in the 80s, was very sherried. It was really a sherry matured driven whiskey, and that it was brought out essentially to sort of try and compete with Macallan 18 at the time. And this reminds me of that whiskey quite a bit. I think it's lovely. I think it's really nice. It's got like really good richness. It's got a lot of nice specific kind of slightly dark sticky fruit character, and the ABV in this case it's natural cask strength, so it's 53% bang on, which looks like one of our targeted bottling strengths, but in this case it was natural cask strength, naturally at 53, which at this sort of age is perfect. To me, this is really like literally a decadent dram, like sort of big measure in a tumbler, feet up, slippers on, relax, just chill out and don't overthink life. Basically, one of those whiskies.
Yeah, 100%. I think either we've put a typo on the bottle with 54%, but it might be 53. So yeah, that would be our typo, souls guys. But yeah, it's beautiful. It really is that old world sherry style. Scott Allen and I were just at Seppeltsfield Winery like 2 weeks ago. And it's that smell of sherry, like port casks maturing in an underground space, that kind of like wet, sticky, black raspberry kind of, you know, fruits that have been dried and syruped and all of the sugary things done to them. So it's absolutely beautiful. Yes, Rob, we blame Chris for any typos. It is the done thing here. But yeah, I think was it Glen had a great note, which was quince paste on the nose. Definitely that like, quince.
Yeah, that Rutherglen fortified vibe. Yeah, it's got that sort of musty wine cellar, earthy, dunnagey sherry funk about it, which I always find very appealing. So it ever so slightly goes towards like balsamic, rancio, game meats sort of profile, but not too excessively.
Yeah,
To
it's the
me, it's a
kind of
nice.
thing you could have with a steak, or you could have it with like a raspberry dessert or something. Yeah, delish.
Yeah,
Yeah,
um, there are some more casks in this parcel, so we might do another one in future. But it's been quite well received for us. So yeah, hopefully when the dust settles on this bottling, we might look at another one down the line.
yeah. I definitely feel like so because yeah, when I got into whiskey and the whole world, there was I think it was like a Wilson and Morgan Westport, similar age, 21, similar profile, and that like really made me fall in love with Glenmorangie. And then tasting the core range, I was like, oh, I really liked that indie bottling of it. So I feel like you're supplying the need, the need that people like me have for this, yeah, really unusual old school style of Glenmore.
Yeah, well, there'll be more. Don't worry. um,
Select.
you could probably do this one actually in tandem with the next dram because they share quite a few similarities in some ways. Um, the next whiskey is a Craigellachie, so straight up single cask Craigellachie. Um, it's 20 years old, distilled 2005. Um, it's matured 16 years in a refill hogshead and then 4 years in a first fill sherry hogshead. And we just bottled this at straight up cask strength, 58.3%. So this is it's a similar in many ways sort of whiskey, similar region of Scotland. Well, not really Speyside versus Highlands, but it's really, similar age, similar maturation profile, similar cask types, and except this is really a heavier profile, a different, heavier, leaner, more kind of mineral, more gun oil, more flinty profile of sherry. And I think it's really interesting to compare the two. I think perhaps the Westport is a slightly more kind of luscious, easygoing sherry, whereas the Craigellachie, because Craigellachie is naturally a worm tub distillate, it's very heavy, very oily, quite waxy. I think that fits this profile of sherry very well. So if you're looking for something much richer, much more emphatic, much more powerful, the Craigellachie is a great dram for that kind of occasion. And when we bottled this, or when I was looking at the cask, I was really agonizing over whether to reduce it or not. We very nearly put this one down to 57.1 or 55, but I erred in the end on just going with cask strength because it was quite a singular, powerful whiskey, and I thought, let's lean into that and preserve that. So yeah, I think it still works well with water though. I would still recommend a few drops of water on this one because it's one of those whiskies that you could go down in stages and it gives you something a bit different with each level of reduction. It's really, really good stuff. It's big, chunky. Again, yeah, it does not drink like 58. I agree. And again, that's why I thought, well, let's preserve the cask strength because there's something very impressive about it at cask strength. And you've still got all that room to go down further and to play around. But yeah, it's a big michty dram this, and I think you get a lot of despite the big sherry influence, you get a lot of the Craigellachie DNA coming through underneath.
Yeah, it's that real like sulfuric type. I always get it as sulfurous. But yeah, the Chinese fire spice on the palate. I was getting like a proper English style Guinness pie, like that really beer tart tangy that's dark on the nose as well. Please feel free to tell me I'm crazy in the comments. I had some Guinness crisps recently, so it's put that flavor profile in my brain. Yeah, Rob's getting toffee notes on the palate, and Glenn says the Craigellachie seems darker on the nose. Yeah, it's going from a sunny spring day in the Westport to an overcast day on the Craigellachie. Um, I love Leo as well. Yes, I don't know why they use prime numbers for all their age statements at Craigellachie. It's like bizarre. It's a 13-year-old and a 17-year-old, and then they make a diversion, I think, with a 21-year-old. Um, but yeah, super, super interesting. I feel like this one really like turns that savory note all the way up. Um, and yeah, two peas in a pod. So you mentioned worm tub style as well, because you guys have put in a worm tub at Hythe Distillery, right?
Yeah, 2 worm tubs. Yeah, so absolutely. Worm tubs, just with your condensing and distillation, are just giving you less copper contact. So you end up with more long chain molecules in your new make spirit, which means you have a heavier, fuller bodied, oilier, fatter, generally waxier spirit. So worm tubs aren't the be all and end all, but they absolutely contribute to a heavier profile, which for Kai, my distillery project, is absolutely what we're aiming for. And so we went double worm tub all the way. We really want to have that kind of rich, full-bodied oiliness. Although rather than a more kind of sulfuric style, we're really aiming for waxes and fruits. So that's that's going to be discovered when we start production. I cannot yet imagine what our new make spirit is going to taste like. I know where we want to get to, sort of 3 to 5 years down the line, but it's going to be a real leap into the unknown when we start production. So we should start running spirit. All being well, we hope to run within this calendar year. So November, December time, we hope to be able to start production. We're just waiting on finalizing when we're actually going to get our electricity switched on at the moment. So once we know that, everything else should start to fall into place. Fingers crossed, touch wood.
It's always the like it's always the trades dragging their feet, bloody electricians, I can say that. I married one. Yeah, it's always those like small little things where it's just like, please just come in, give us a thumbs up, and we'll get off and going. But you just have to wait. In the meantime, I suppose you've got other things going with preparations, I assume.
Yeah. I mean, all the things are being kind of drawn together, and we're trying to manage everything accordingly. It's a pretty complex thing building a distillery, but we've got all our employees hired now, so they're doing planning and prep and designing the kind of master recipe plan for the production. We're just planning things like our first yeast deliveries, planning the timings of our first cask deliveries, so that we can ensure we've got enough spirit ready to fill them fresh. All these sorts of details. It's complicated, but we designed the distillery to be able to accommodate these things as well. And also there's training. Like, we're all going to have to do all sorts of different trainings in order to be able to work in the distillery. Everything from forklift to first aid to a bunch of training courses around different bits of equipment, the mill, all these sorts of things. So, and then we've got a plan to get our consultants in at different stages. Like, we've got specific consultants for things like the mashing, because we're doing a manual mash tun, consultant for the wood-fired wash distillation very specifically, which is pretty critical. We'd like to not kill ourselves. So all systems go.
Yeah. No accidents is one of those kind of fundamental things.
Normally when you go in distilleries, you see the signs that say no accidents on site for 760 days or something like that. Ours will say that, but it'll be minutes instead of days.
I love it. Well, look, I mean, you can't beat Banff Distillery's record, so I think as long as nothing spontaneously combusts or nobody falls into any vats and can't swim, I think you'll be okay.
Yeah, fingers crossed. So I'll talk about the final whiskey. This is actually the most affordable dram in the lineup tonight, but it's also the the big peaty one to close out on. So it's World Peat Highball blended malt. I had some parcels of German whiskey, Swedish whiskey, and Scottish whiskey, and the idea of doing something, they were all peated, and the idea of doing something that involved different peat from different parts of the world. And I always liked peated whiskey in a highball anyway, and the pricing on this was quite good, which made me think, why not just do something a bit zany and fun and different, and make something which we could market specifically as a highball dram. And so we took these whiskies, we married them together in an IBC, and I tried it at a few different strengths and settled on like 50%. I thought it was like a really nice. Sorry, I'm stepping on the segues. Oh no, I feel bad about that. I'm sorry. You can do it.
No, Patrick loves the segues that I somehow managed to come up with. So
You can do.
Man on a mission. You've got places to be, but yes,
You can do a
continue.
segue. You can do a segue supercut at the end. A segue montage. So yeah, we tried a few different strengths, and I thought 50% works very well. The whiskey shows well on its own, and it works perfectly when you mix into a highball. I do like Rob's comment: German, Swedish, and Scottish, like putting together flat pack furniture in a sauna while wearing a kilt. Very true. The thought of wearing a kilt in a sauna is nightmarish to me, but saunas are too hot for me, full stop. The thought of being clad in tweed. So yeah, it's something which is a slightly different peat flavor profile than you might normally get. It's one of these ones that is a bit of a head scratcher, but I think the combination, because we left it to stew for quite a long time and marry to get that integration and that balance, and the water certainly helped. And you went down from about 57 to 50%. And I really like this whiskey. It's just a very nice, very peaty, but also not just your commoner garden Isla peat in, a big hit of medicine and ash and lemon juice. It's actually something which is a little bit more complicated and fun and a bit more left field. You get this kind of like salty licorice, lemon bonbons. I definitely get this kind of like softer, like pine wood smoke and something like a bit of herbal peat in there. I think there's quite a lot going on for what is a young kind of, I don't know, just young, peaty, straightforward, mostly bourbon matured whiskey. One of the tricks we played with this was to put in a small amount. One of the whiskies from Scotland we put in was a small amount of unpeated sherry matured whiskey, which was about 18 years old, just to top dress it and give it just a little bit of something complicated to give it a flourish and a bit of depth. And I think that worked a treat, and that helped just bring out a little bit of something different in the final profile.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, the tasting notes are great. Matt finds it easy drinking peat. I'd like to think this is approachable to non-peaty people. Yeah, I think even on the bottle label, you're like, pop it in a highball. It's definitely, yeah, quaffable, but still flavorful enough that you could kind of have it every day. Leo says very little peat or smoke on the nose, but then it tickles on the tongue. It's a kelpie type of peat. Yeah, definitely that like more seaside. And Patrick's getting that barbecue sauce. Yeah, bit of oh, what's that? Classic hickory brown sugar barbecue sauce from the States. I can't remember it, but making peat great again. Don't give Angus ideas for labels.
I've already done Make Angus Great Again on one
Yeah,
of them. I think actually we did a bourbon and I put
the 8-year-old.
Make Angus Great Again on the back.
Yeah.
Can't have too many MAGA jokes.
Yes. It's a plethora of them at the moment. But yeah, so this would I'm assuming as well, because I know you did those was it the Smogan Swedish whiskey? It was some of that, and
Yeah, the Swedish component is the smallest component in this mix, and it was Smogan that went into it.
it comes through so much. Like it I instantly was just like, oh, there's Smogan in here. I can tell it that's that fishy kind of thing
Hmm.
to it.
Yeah,
Fishy in a positive
it's a
way.
very briny, very coastal harbour, very pure, very citric, very precise, chiseled whiskey is Smogan, and I think that you do get quite a strong influence from that in here. I think those kind of more herbal, piney smoke wood characteristics come from the German component, and then there is this kind of like medicinal character that comes through on the palate, which is to me a little bit more classic Isla peat at the play there. Um, so yeah, I always wanted to do a highball themed bottling, and it just so happened these various stocks were all at quite a good price point, and then I thought, well, there's the opportunity to do this highball themed thing that I've always wanted to do. So um, yeah, it's like with Decadent Drinks, everything else is like trying to do something that, I don't know, people might have done something similar before, but we're trying to do something and put our own spin on it. And I'm sure other people have done highball themed bottlings, but I wanted to kind of embrace it and do it in a slightly different way. And doing a world peaty blend seemed like the perfect way
Right,
to
right.
tie all these loose threads together.
Yeah, fair enough. Um, yeah, I think I feel like I'll run the poll so you guys can vote for your top two favorite whiskies of the evening. But kind of delving into some of the future releases that are coming. You're in your blending era. I feel like you've got a blend coming out honoring Charles MacLean as well on the bottle.
Well, yeah, I put that on just because Charlie's like the OG blended whiskey lore master, and he's a good friend of mine, and I just think he's great and wanted to celebrate him. And yeah, it's a blend that. So this again was a bit incidental. We had my business partner Ian had bought a parcel of 1973 North of Scotland grain whiskey, which was under proof, and it was like a lot of things that Ian buys, which is just kind of, that sounds fun. Let's buy that and figure out what to do with it later on. And then like 2 years later, he's like, Angus, is this a problem? Why did I buy this grain whiskey? Why didn't you stop me? And so I was like, he said, can you just make it go away? Make it stop, fix it. So I had to think and scratch my head and thought, well, we can definitely do something with this. So I thought, well, just make a blend. There's what's in it. There's about a good chunk of it, only like 30% of it is underproof North of Scotland. About 50% of it is 12 year. Well, at the time it was 11 years old actually. No, it was 10 and a bit, and it was about to turn 11. It was blended Scotch, blended malt, a pre-mixed blended malt matured in sherry. So I used that to amp up the strength massively because that was very high strength, like 63%. And then the rest of it is a component of little bits and pieces I had lying around, like a bit of 95 Fettercairn, some of our like 2000 sherry matured Ardmore, and some peated whiskey, some heavily peated Knockdhu, which was in there just to chuck a little bit of peat in the background and make it more complicated. I'm looking forward to people trying this blend because and then I left it in a refill sherry hogshead to marry, all just to marry together for about a year, 14 months, something like that, just over a year, until it turned 12 years old, basically. And then bottled it with reduction down to 53%. So, yeah, it's a blend. My first blended Scotch that I've made, maybe the last, I don't know, but it's. I'm really pleased with it. I think it's good. I probably would say it's a good blended Scotch because it tastes like a malt. I don't know, but you can taste the grain in there. You can taste that sort of very featherlight, elegant old North of Scotland sloshing about in the depths, and it's done a really nice thing. So yeah, it was originally something that needed to solve a problem, but we've turned a problem into, I think, a very fun, tasty bottling. So I'm interested to see what everyone thinks of it. And I think it's a fair price. So yeah.
Yeah, amazing. Well, yeah, we'll definitely with I think with every shipment that we get, Ollie always squirrels away a bottle of each for either a virtual tasting or for like the top shelf festival bars and stuff like that, or a rare bar. So yeah, we will definitely be getting our hands on some and tasting it. Um, but yeah, Leo already says sign me up for a bottle. Yeah, I'm a big sucker for blended whiskey, so I'm very, very much looking forward to trying it.
Other things that are coming up, Deanston 97 Decadent Drams, which is an absolute wax bomb, is superb. Another Arden American coming up, which is a sort of sequel to the Whiskey Sponge Chapter 100, Edition 100, sorry, where we did a bunch of octaves blended together. I've done that again, a sort of follow-up. So there's one of those coming. Bowmore 2011 with a very cool label, and a couple of really nice French spirits. A very big multi-vintage old cognac, which I've just labelled as hordage, which means age unknown, even though I know precisely what the age is. Another Glen Grant Whiskeyland, a 45-year-old Armagnac, another Old Orkney bottling, which is another multi-vintage Old Orkney, but instead of the sherry approach, we're going sort of pure refill this time, and another Candle Kitty in the works, and a Lafroig 1991, and a bunch of other stuff as well, because I've got a bottling plan that goes quite far ahead at the moment. So lots of sexy stuff in the works over the next couple of months.
Yeah, wow. I think Rob really speaks for us when he's like, "Stop, our wallets can't take it." It really is
No, I know
that
you can't buy
Simpsons
everything.
meme. Stop, he's already dead.
You can't buy
So,
everything, but you should still try.
yeah, absolutely incredible. Well, I think Ollie can back me up on this. We've got a tasting with Royal Mile whiskies next week, and the Old Orkney that you bottled for them is on it. Mostly probably because I bought a bottle when I was at Royal Mile Whiskies and was like, "This is great," and then Chris went crazy and bought more. So,
It's a
yeah,
jam, that one. Yeah, it's very
it's
nice.
it's cracking. It's just solidly good. So yeah, we're very much looking forward to that and looking forward to the next Decadent tasting. But I think everyone has voted. I'll do the drum roll here. Oh, there's one person holding out on a vote. You gotta get it in time, guys. But we will end the poll drum roll here, and I am actually very pleasantly surprised that the Vatted grain took it. I think like in a lineup of spectacular whiskies, the Vatted grain really absolutely having them out of totally my bad. But yeah, incredible job. The Westport, I 100% agree, a well-deserved second place. Ben Nevis from the Barrel coming third, but yeah, I think that Vatted grain is like special in a really unique way. So absolutely stood out despite the fact that it was number one. Leo, you haven't seen a zero before? We definitely have. I think we had one the other week where it was literally only three whiskeys got votes and the other three got completely ignored. And I was like, oh no. But yeah, I think look, Glen Murray's great. It's just in a lineup like this, it's really hard for it to stand out. So yeah, thank you so much, everyone, for joining us. Thank you, Angus, for joining us. I know that
My pleasure.
it's always hard to get a hold of you and to lock you down, and probably even more so now with the whole moving and shuffling and whatnot. So we
Well,
really appreciate
once
it.
that's over and done with, I love doing these tastings. It's always, um, it's certainly nice that the time zone difference means I can do it in the morning. When I've done ones in Canada before where they say, "Can you just do 1 a.m.?" and I'm like, no, I can't do that. So no, it's, as I said before, it's always a pleasure to do this, and it's always humbling to see enthusiasm for what we do on the far-flung other side of our planet. So yeah, thank you all for attending, and thank you to you guys at Whiskey List for doing such a good job for us and for putting these tastings on regularly. It's always fun for me to come and do them. So yeah, thank you.
Yeah,
Angus,
well,
I haven't mentioned it yet to you because I know you're busy moving and whatnot, but I think the next tasting with you that we're due would be the next chapters from the Whiskeyland series. So we'll chat anyway. We'll find a date and time, but we're, I think, long overdue for the next 6.
Yeah. All right. Well, we'll nail down a date for that. Don't worry. Just let me know when works, and we'll figure something out. But yeah, always very happy to see people's reactions to tasting their way through a bunch of whiskey lands.
Yeah, that should be a really good one. Stay tuned. Obviously, rewards members get the first
What would it be?
email.
11 chapters. Where did we get up to? 12. So it'd be chapters 13 through 19 or something like that.
Yeah, the next 6. Yeah, 13.
Next 6.
So, yep.
Yeah, 6 to 18. No, 12. Yeah, 12 to. Okay, yeah, good. Well, there's some.
We're slow readers.
No.
That's all we are.
Whiskey land must be savoured.
Yeah, 100%. Well, thank you so much, everyone, for joining us. Thank you, Angus. We'll let you head off. And yes, I've just shared the link as well to the collections in the chat. If it's sold out, I'm super sorry. Email Ollie, harass him. Hopefully it's coming, or we can get some more. But yeah, thank you so much, everyone, for joining us. And we will see you at the next one. Take care. No, email
Thank
Chris.
you.
Email Chris. That was Chris. Bye.
Thanks, everyone. Bye bye.